Good evening, everyone. I call this regular council meeting Monday, June the 5th, 2023, 7 p.m. to order and to acknowledge we are on the traditional territory of the Chehalis. Next order of business, please.
Next order of business is introduction of late items.
I would just like to publicly acknowledge the resignation of Councillor Buckley. I wish him well and next order of business, please.
The next order of business will be approval of the agenda.
I have a mover, moved by Councillor Facio, seconded by Councillor Buckley. I'm sorry, I had Buckley on my mind. My apologies. Seconded by Councillor, and I even wrote Buckley down. Councillor Vidal. Any discussion? Call the question, all in favor? Passes unanimously. Next order of business, please.
The next order is adoption of council minutes, and the resolution is that the regular council meeting minutes of May 15th, 2023 be adopted.
Do I have a mover? Moved by Councillor Vidal, seconded by Councillor Jackson. Errors or omissions? Seeing none, call the question. All in favor? Councillor Jackson? All in favor? Yes. Okay. No, nobody opposed. Passes unanimously. Next order of business, please.
Business arising from the minutes is the next order of business.
Actually, I have something I would like to bring up from that. And Councillor Facio, you unfortunately missed a very good presentation at the as a delegate at the last meeting. Hopefully you had an opportunity to read the report, but it was from John Coles. And it was all the reasons why we shouldn't put our evacuation route through the Sasquatch Park. That being said, I mean, his presentation was so moving. I believe that that we should take it one step further. So I would like to move that council remove the Sasquatch Park from consideration in our emergency evacuation route, and that a letter to John Coles be sent in thank you and acknowledgement of hopefully this resolution. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Jackson. Discussion? Councillor Facio.
Thank you, Mayor Wood. Yeah, I've known John for a number of years, and I have been involved with him before on this discussion with the route there. Personally, I think with respect to the emergency committee that we have, that I think that should go before them, before there's any resolution made in Harrison, just sort of forgetting about it. I appreciate John's presentation, and I did read it, and it's a presentation he's made before over many years ago in regards to that area. He did say it was a Class A park, but it's actually a Class C park. And it's just needs a motion in council in Victoria to remove that temporarily as a emergency route. But anyway, that's another discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Councillor Vidal.
Thank you, Mayor Wood. I believe a while ago I made a suggestion to council that a letter be written to the emergency planning committee expressing perhaps some concerns on that evacuation route. I still think that would be the correct and formal way to go. And also with UBCM coming up in September, I have made a suggestion and request through our CAO to meet with the Minister of Emergency Planning to discuss further the second evacuation route. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? I would just comment that this discussion will be coming up in our next committee of the whole meeting. It's under the agenda, the evacuation route, so that can be discussed further at that time. So again, the motion on the table is that council remove Sasquatch Park from consideration in our emergency evacuation route and a letter to John of that. We're calling the question. All in favor? Councillor Jackson, all opposed? Counselor Facio and Counselor Vidal opposed, motion fails. Next order of business, please.
The next order of business is the consent agenda, and there is nothing on there.
Next order, please.
Next order of business, the delegations and petitions. We have to Mr. John Allen regarding off-leash dog park.
Okay, sorry. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council, for this opportunity to talk about John Buckley's idea of a dog park. I attended the meeting where he first suggested that. And on May the 1st, I wrote the following letter to you, which is in your agenda package. It didn't make it to council, unfortunately, but thank you for the opportunity to present my modification of his suggestion here tonight. And I do this because not everything we do in Harrison has to cost $50,000 or $100,000 and involve 3 consultants. We are quite capable in this community of solving problems in-house using our own resources, those being the land, buildings, and equipment of the village municipality and the volunteers and the intelligence of our many residents. As an example, I would point out that the one-way traffic system and the angled parking, which we now enjoy on the Esplanade, was brought into place as an experiment. And it was Soren Klein from the motel next door and myself who went out there one day, laid out all the herringbone parking spots, put out planks and concrete blocks to expand the sidewalk. And we had a trial basis to see if this traffic pattern and parking pattern was going to work. And it did work. And having proven that at minimal cost on a trial basis, we then made it permanent. And I use that as an example of what we can do in Harrison without large expenditures. And as a taxpayer, I'm always conscious of the public dollar and getting a good value for the buck. So what I'm suggesting is that we take John Buckley's suggestion of using the south part of the overflow parking area, but instead of having a small square space in the corner by Hot Springs Road, what I'm proposing is that we use the snow fencing which we have on hand in the Public Works yard and the expertise of our Public Works crew who know how to put that up and take it down very quickly because they do so every year on the beach. We use that snow fencing and we fence off from the corner of the village office nearest to Hot Springs Road up as far as the sign, which currently announces the pay parking scheme, but will later announce the festival. And then we run that fence all the way across the overflow parking area to Poplar Street. I'm sorry, I got the name wrong in my letter. It's not Park, it's Poplar. All the way across to Poplar Street, and then run it south parallel to Poplar Street until you get to the Public Works yard fence. So we have one side of that rectangle already 95% enclosed with the Public Works yard fence and the village office buildings. We just need the 3 sides. Doing so would create a long park, which is what the big dogs need when they're stretching their legs and they need a place to run. And it is about as far as somebody can throw a slobber ball for the dog to chase from Hot Springs Road across to Poplar Street. The only additional equipment that we would need in order to make this effective is a couple of posts to put in the ground as gate posts and a couple of farm type gates which are available anywhere for $150 a piece. In the center of that fence where the existing roadway is, so that when we come to a holiday weekend like July 1st coming up for a special event, that we need the extra parking, on the Friday night perhaps, we open those gates up and allow the cars to come in to the dog park area for the weekend. Therefore, we have a dog park for most of the time, but the additional parking when we need it. And that would be a total expenditure of maybe $300 to $400 for materials to create that gate. So what I'm suggesting is that we do this as an experiment at minimal costs. There will be labor, of course, but we do have the staff and equipment on hand in order to be able to do so. And the only additional expenditure is for a couple of gates and gate posts to create that opening in the fence. And if those two gates could overlap by a foot, the dog owners themselves can use that for access and can control access to the dog park. I'd also suggest a small man gate somewhere from the back of the parking area behind the village office, so people coming in from the south can access the dog run area from the south side using the rear parking area of the village office. So my suggestion to council is, instead of delaying this until the fall and talking about spending $50,000 or $75,000 on fancy fencing, before you do any of that, spend a few $100s now, put the snow fence up, put the gates up, and allow the dog owners and dog users to utilize that area as a dog park. And if it works out well and is acceptable to everybody, then consider permanent fencing. But I would not be at all in support of spending huge amount of money on a permanent chain link fence if it's not going to work, and we don't know if it'll work until we try it out. So that's why I'm suggesting tonight that you reconsider your option. I think there still is demand for an off-leash dog area. Not every dog owner will want to use it, and some will want to use it exclusively when there are no other dogs around. And at the moment, the only people using that area are actually the geese. I'd also point out that there's a gate leading from the public works yard into this area, and you can use that to access it if you need to go in with a lawnmower or with the goose pooper scooper machine that you use on the beach to clean up the grass. So I'd leave this with you tonight as a suggestion that you do this on a trial basis, spend the few $100s that it'll take, monitor it over the next few months, see how it works, and get the feedback back from the residents. And if it turns out to be a success, by all means, make it a more permanent installation. But again, I would suggest that you have it multi-purpose so you can use it for parking when you need to, and dogs for the rest of the time. And you can call it the John Buckley Dog Park if you like. Thank you very much for your time. I'm prepared to answer any questions the council may have, and then I will sit down.
Thank you. Any questions of council? Don't see none. Actually, John, I had one here. I thought I heard you talking last week at the up at Greenpoint here about the dog park that actually allows people, again, off-leash dogs, and also able to utilize that section of the lake.
Yes, I was at Greenpoint and I noticed that they have brought in a whole new set of rules for dogs at Greenpoint. They don't have a dog park as such. There's no fenced area. So what they've done is they've created zones on a map, although they're not clearly identified on the ground. And within those zones, you can walk your dog on a leash, but only on the pathways. Dogs are not allowed on the green playground area at all. And they're not allowed on the beach, except at the very north end of the beach when you go around the bay. And in that area where dogs are allowed on the beach, you may take your dog off leash and you may take it into the lake. So I was just bringing that up because the BC Parks had spent some time and money developing that particular protocol for their area. And it might be interesting for the village to monitor that. We did have at one point the ability for dog owners to go to the other end of Rendell Park and have their dogs run off leash and go in the water, which dogs like to do. But unfortunately, that particular corner of Rendell Park has become extremely popular with small families because of the water conditions and the good sand that they have up there. So I just think that you should look at that and maybe look at the two fenced dog park areas in Kent and even in Chilliwack for guidance. But in the meantime, let's try something in Harrison, but let's not spend a lot of money doing so.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Allen. And again, I thank you for taking the time to make this drawing and to bring this to council's attention. It's always nice when a member of the public brings different options to us.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next order of business, please.
It's correspondence.
Can you just read off the headings of those, please?
Certainly, Mayor Wood. The first piece of correspondence is a letter dated May 1st, 2023 from John Allen regarding the dog park proposal. Next is an email dated May 5th from Wallace Mall, District of Kent, regarding an invitation for a joint council meeting. C is email dated May 15th, 2023 from Ross Buchanan regarding disaster avoidance. D is a letter dated May 23rd, 2023 from Jason Lum, Chair of the Fraser Valley Regional District regarding Lower Mainland Traffic Services, alteration to the service delivery model for South Coast Highway Patrol Services. E is a letter dated May 23rd, 2023 from the Advisory Planning Commission Chair and reads regarding the resignation letter. F is email dated May 30th, 2023 from the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure regarding BC e-bike rebate program. G is a letter dated May 30th, 2023 from Alan Gorneau regarding the Code of Conduct bylaw 1189, 2023. And the final H is an email dated May 31st from the BC Hydro regarding UBCM meeting request form.
Thank you. I'm just going to put all those together. So the motion now is just for receipt. Do I have a mover for receipt? Moved by Councillor Facio, seconded by Councillor Vidal. Discussion. Gonna call the question. All in favor, receipt passes unanimously. Next order of business, please.
The next is business arising from correspondence.
Councillor Vidal.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, regarding the request came from Wallace Mall CAO
I'm just going to
of
cut you.
Kent with a request from Mayor Pranger to have a council-to-council meeting regarding the Lettsmont Regional Pool. I think this is a excellent idea. And as such, I will make a motion to have a staff take a survey out for council members as to what dates would work for everyone. CAO indicated June 20th, 21st, 22nd, or 23rd. So I would ask that staff send out an email requesting available dates from council. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder on that? Seconded by Councillor Jackson. Discussion? Is that a hand, Councillor Facio? Okay. I'd just like to talk about that letter. So the letter itself is it's an important subject. And this is from the Chief Administrative Officer of Kent to our interim Chief Administrative Officer. And it's to set up a meeting from council to council. And it's to talk about the new pool. And I guess there's some conversation here about contribution for the pool in the sense of capital cost and operating costs. And there's some comments on here too about how much of the recreation facility that we use, which is some interesting facts, actually. That 48% of the users of the Kent recreational facility is from Harrison Hot Springs. Actually, there is a question mark, and then 22% have active memberships at the gym. So that's actually a fair percentage of our village memberships there. And the conversation is also to talk about overall efficiencies with our joint service on emergency, planning, search and rescue, blah, 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 blah. So they're asking to meet, in the end of June here. So my concerns go back to, again, is the staffing. As our interim chief administrative officer is leaving just a couple of days after that, I would think if we are going to meet, that we should be meeting again with our new chief administrative officer so they can be involved in these conversations, because these conversations I think are quite critical. I think they're very important. There's a lot of money that's possibly involved in some of this. The new regional pool is expensive, the operating costs. And for our small village to get involved in some of these, there's going to be some hard questions. So I don't think it's just a meeting that we should just have just with council to council. I would like to, I know there's a motion on the table here, but I believe that this should actually be staff to staff, and I would hope that we would wait until we have our new chief administrative officer on board. That being said, any other discussion on this before we're ready to call the question? Councillor Passy.
Mayor Wood, just correct me if I'm wrong, but our interim CEO is here to the end of June, I believe.
Yes, which is just a few days after this.
No, to the end of June.
And this is June 23rd.
Yeah, the CEO is here till the end of June.
Thank you, sir.
She's the 31st. So
Thank
she would be here to help us.
Oh, yes, no,
Yeah,
she's,
yeah.
she's here. Thank you. Further discussion? Ready to call the question? So the motion, can you read that back out to me again, Councillor Vidal? Did you write that down? Or just maybe I
Yes,
think-
to refer to staff to coordinate with council a acceptable meeting date, June 20th, 21st, 22nd, or 23rd, to check on the availability of council. And if a date is found, then to correspond with CAO Wallace Mall to set it up.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think we actually, out of courtesy to Agassiz, we really should meet with them. Previously, we've always done this and just exchanged ideas. We won't put anything on the table. I agree with you down the road when we have a new CAO and they're in business for 2 or 3 months, we can meet with them again. Well, I think it would be a good thing just to meet with them, have a healthy discussion and arrange for another meeting, say perhaps in September. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. So we're ready to call the question. So all in favor? All in favor with the motion passes with the mayor opposed. Any other business from the correspondence?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Mayor Wood.
Councillor Facio?
Yeah, that's 15, page 15, 17, and 19. And the letter, page 15. From Chair Lam of the Regional District regarding the services that are going to be from the RCMP, they're going to be taken away from the municipalities to concentrate on the highways. I think I did bring this up before from the previous meeting I had with the regional district, but I think a letter of support from Harrison Hot Springs would also help the regional district to try and arrange a meeting with the municipalities before they move any steps forward with this. So I'll make a motion that we send a letter of support to Fraser Valley Regional District in regards to their letter to try and arrange a meeting with the province to discuss the distribution of the RCMP officers from the detachment to the highways.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Jackson. Further discussion? Seeing none, ready to call the question. All in favor of the letter? Motion passes unanimously. Any other business from the correspondence?
Yes, page 17. Just like to thank Sonia Rice Peters. She's put in a resignation from the chair of the Planning Advising Commission. She'd chaired it for a number of years and did a very good job with the APC over those years. It's been a bit quiet lately, as it normally is sometimes with the APC, unless something comes forward from council for them to discuss. But I'd like to thank her sincerely for all chairing that advisory planning commission, and wish her all the best. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor.
And
Just before you move on.
Yeah.
You just listed, I just want to deal with this one here further here. So now that we have no quorum for the board, for the advisory planning commission. So we've already, the advisory planning commission per our, I believe our, per the bylaw, our council bylaw is 7 people. So we're down to 2. So I believe there's 5 additional positions that would be required for that. So I just did some research on this, and so the requirement for the advisory planning commission under the Local Government Act, which is section 461, and it's actually not a requirement by the village. This is something which has just been created. But what's interesting is under section 15 again, under 536 of the Local Government Act, which is the Board of Variance. So that, in fact, the local government, I'm going to read it here, that has adopted a zoning bylaw must, by bylaw, establish a Board of Variance. So that being said, I would like to move that we dissolve the Advisory Planning Commission and we create what is actually required, which is the Board of Variance. Do I have a second? Do I have a mover on that? No mover, so the motion fails. Can I would like to add an amendment then that this be forwarded back to staff for comment. Do I have a, yes, a motion, so I move, you second it to move it, send it back to staff. Further discussion on it, Councillor?
it's just, I'm sorry.
Councillor Vidal.
Thank you, Mayor. What I'm in support of sending it back to staff. And I would ask that a report then be submitted to council explaining and outlining the options for the APC and a Board of a Variance. It's kind of difficult to make any kind of a decision, I think, here tonight without seeing that research and a report from staff. Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion, Councillor Facio?
Thank you, Mayor. Well, just a brief one to say that back in 93, 94, Mr. Allen will recall this, that we set up this APC as a separate committee to do the planning and discussion and then bring back the recommendations to council. So that was the idea behind it back then, and it's been in place since then. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any further discussion on it? Ready to call the question? Again, this is just to refer the Board of Variance and the Advisory Planning Commission requirements back to staff for a report. Ready to call the question? All in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Next letter, Counselor Facio.
There is a Ministry of Transportation Infrastructure e-bike rebate program. So those folks who are interested in purchasing e-bikes, there is some help from the province. They're putting out 6 million in funding available to attract getting into the low carbon world that we're trying to get into. So I would say, just asking, maybe this should go on our website, Mayor Wood, if anybody's interested in a rebate.
Thank you, Counselor. Any other further business from the correspondence? Counselor Facio, you still have your mic on. Are you still?
Oh, sorry.
No further. I just have a couple of items. Item G, which is page 21, which is the letter from Alan Garneau, which is the Code of Conduct bylaw. I just again want to thank him for taking the time. That is a very, very complex bylaw. For you to take the time to go through it and make these comments, I greatly appreciate them. I think staff would probably appreciate them. And I would hope that staff would review them and just see if there is any items that may have been missed in that bylaw. Again, I thank you, Alan, for that. And I have one. Sorry, I have one final one here, and that's page 13. Just go back on. And this is a letter from another resident from Ross Buchanan. And it's on the disaster avoidance. I mean, it's a great letter. It's really talking about the concern of fire here in the village here. I know it's in all of our minds, the disasters that are happening across our country. We have 3 fires not too far from us right now. I think that some of the ideas here that Mr. Buchanan has are some good ideas. And again, I'm not gonna read this out, but I would encourage anybody that's interested to read it. It's attached. It's with part of the agenda. And it's on page 13, and it's the disaster avoidance side of things. And again, thank you, Ross, for taking the time to bringing this to council's attention. Any further business arising correspondence? Seeing none. Next order of business, please.
Thank you, Mayor Wood. The next order of business is reports of councilors, committees, committee of the whole, and commissions.
Thank you. Councillor Facio, please.
Thank you, Mayor Wood. I don't have any reports as such, but I would just like to make a comment and wish Councillor John Buckley, who has served, I believe this was his 3rd term on council, was an outstanding councillor, who was a real person who liked to help the community in many ways and brought many ideas forward over the years. And it's on an unfortunate situation that he's had to resign as per the letter. And it's I say, I want to wish him all the best, and it's just an unfortunate situation that we're going through in the village at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Vidal.
Thank you, Mayor Wood. On May 16th, I attended a Community Futures North Fraser board meeting and held in Mission. On May 17th, I attended the Citizens Advisory Committee meeting at Mountain Institution. On May 30th, I attended the RCMP community meeting held here at Memorial Hall. And on June 2nd, I had the privilege of attending the 2023 high school graduation ceremonies in Agassiz, and extending congratulations and well wishes from our village. Speaking with some of the grads, I have some great confidence in this next generation as they embark on the next phase of their lives. And in my view, this event is one of the most important to have council attendance and representation. And again, it was indeed an honor to participate. So on behalf of Harrison, the village and our businesses, I certainly extend a hearty congratulations to all the grads. And on a final note, Mr. Mayor, I also want to extend my thank you to John Buckley for his contributions to this council, both previously. He will be missed. And the circumstances regarding the letter are unfortunate, but I do wish him well. And that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Just before I go to Counselor Jackson, I just Counselor Vidal. I just wanted to make public for the public record here. So the Community Futures North Fraser Board of Directors, you have resigned or asked for the resignation from that committee. That's correct, right?
I would, thank you, Mayor Wood. I was just putting it out to see if there would be any other counselor that would be interested in taking on that responsibility. I don't believe there has been any response to that. So I will do my best to continue on and attend as many of the meetings as I'm able to, given my schedule. Thank you.
Thank you. So I just wanted to confirm that there are no counselors that wanted to continue or take that part, take that over. No, seeing none. Thank you. Counselor Jackson.
Thank you, Worship. I'd like to thank John Buckley also. I worked with him on previous councils. And you really don't get a better counselor than Mr. Buckley. He was always very fair, very level-headed, and he definitely worked for the people. He was in contact them all the time. We've had many discussions about what's the real things in life. It is health and family. And I wish him well, and I hope that everything is positive for him in the future. I attended the Regional District Library meeting. Things are looking up very well. The circulation was up between 3% and 5% last year. But the most amazing thing is that they had 29,000 new people sign library cards last year. And year to date, they've had 12,412, which means that there is a real uptick in the number of people going to the library, and the circulation is really, really good. We just hope that the provincial government pays more attention and funds them more than what they really need, because their capital costs keep going up. I attended the RCMP meeting. I took copious notes. There were a lot of very good suggestions by the people that were here. It was well attended. And I'll bring up some of these suggestions when we have our next committee of the whole. July the 1st is coming along really well. We hopefully have quite a few entrants coming in, and thank you very much, Your Worship, for your wonderful donation. It's appreciated very much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next order of business, please.
Thank you, Mayor Wood. The next order of business is a report from me regarding the strategic planning session.
No, I'm gonna interrupt you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I
You're trying to
apologize.
you're trying to cut reports from the mayor off.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. So again, I guess we're under reports from the mayor. So I just wanted to talk a little bit. So we had regarding our official community plan, we had 3 public meetings, and they were various times of the day and into the evening. So they were last week. I look forward to seeing the comments that came out of it. I saw a lot of stickies and I could see some questions. So again, I look forward to that. It's nice to see the public involved in the official community plan. And I guess once we get that information back, then as council, we'll have to look at what our next step is and what involvement and where we're going with that. The next item I just wanted to bring to everyone's attentions is that we are now under water restrictions, which are present now until September the 30th. Next item was the RCMP open house. There was 3 of us there in that open house. And according to the RCMP themselves, it was one of the most well-attended open houses in their whole communities that they're responsible for. So that was nice to see. There was good dialogue, lots of good questions, and as Councillor Jackson says, he's got notes. I know the RCMP took a lot of notes, but most of the questions all seem to be relating to traffic, which actually was quite pleasant to hear. When our main concerns aren't as serious as what some of the other communities are facing. But the RCMP did an awesome job and I thank them for that. And I would also like to note that the Agassiz Harrison Museum just has a new, they have a new, I'm just trying to think of the words of what it is here, is a display, and it's actually being put onto the Royal BC Museum and the First Peoples Cultural Council in the country of Canada, and it's called Our Living Languages. It's the first official Royal BC Museum exhibit that's to be brought here to our local museum. I had an opportunity to see it on the weekend, and it's on Our Living Languages, First Peoples Voices in British Columbia. So it's on for the next, it started as of, I believe, today. And I'm not sure how long it is on for, but I encourage anybody to stop by and have a look. Next item I would like to do, excuse me, is got some good news, and I'm just pleased to announce that we have retained a chief financial officer who will be starting in early August. So I look forward to that position. And we have also hired a corporate officer, and she will be here, I believe, in the next few days. And she's actually a resident of this village, so I haven't met either one of them. I look forward to meeting them, but it's exciting. It's good news. 2 very important staff positions. So again, the chief financial officer and the corporate officer positions have been filled. Next order of business, please.
The next order of business is a report from staff. And the first one is report of the interim CAO, acting CEO, regarding the strategic planning session. So at the May 15th, 2023 regular council meeting, a report was presented to council about a proposed strategic planning session. And I have attached that to the report as well. Council made the following motion at the last meeting that the strategic planning session report be referred back to staff to work with Mr. Poole and provide other options for meeting times. Part of the concerns raised at the regular council meeting was regarding the holding of the town hall meeting on Monday evening at 5 p.m. to present the survey results received from the residents, and then council going into a strategic planning session afterwards. Council noted that starting a session in the evening would not be as productive as starting in the morning. Staff has spoken with Mr. Poole, and he has advised that he can conduct a town hall meeting on the evening of Monday, June 26th, to present the results of the survey to council and the public. He further agreed to start the strategic planning session on the morning of Tuesday, June 27th at 9 a.m. for a full day, and on Wednesday, June 28th for half a day. As the village is actively recruiting for senior staff positions, staff asked Mr. Poole if it would be possible to delay the strategic planning session for a couple of months until the new senior staff members are in place. He reported that the ministry is extending contracts for an additional 3 month period, and that he would have the following dates available to help with strategic planning sessions should council wish during the week of August 14th or August 21st, 2023. So there are two options. One was to continue with the original timeline presented to council on the report of May 15th. And then the second one was that the strategic process be delayed until the middle of August to allow for senior staff to be hired and in place. The recommendation from staff now was that council for the Village of Harrison Hot Springs approve rescheduling the strategic planning session with Mr. Poole until the week of August 21st, 2023, to allow for senior staff to be hired and in place.
Thank you. Do I have the mover? Moved by Counselor Facio, seconded by Counselor Jackson. Discussion? The only comment I want to make on this here is I recall reading through it here that it says that it is a closed meeting of council. And I thought the meeting was going to be an open meeting and we would be going into closed meeting if there was closed meeting discussion.
That is correct, Mayor Wood.
Thank you. Yeah, okay, thank you. Any further discussion on this? Ready to call the question, so all in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Next item, please.
The next item is a report of the operations manager, acting DCAO, regarding the Harrison Lake Dike Upgrade Project.
Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, sir. The issue in front of council tonight is we're looking to establish a consultant team to facilitate the detailed design of the Harrison Lake Protective Dike and the wastewater treatment plant access road and area around the wastewater treatment plant. On June 6, 2022, Village Council authorized staff to make an application to the Community Building Fund in British Columbia Strategic Priorities Fund to seek funding to upgrade the Harrison Lake Protective Dike, the wastewater treatment plant access road and area around the wastewater treatment plant. On April 17th, 2023, the province issued a province-wide news release advising the village's application for just under $6 million in funding was successful. In support of the village's objective of limiting the risk of natural hazards to its community, staff re-engaged Northwest Hydraulics Limited to prepare a proposal for services for a detailed design for the flood protection infrastructure, including dike upgrades along Harrison Lake and upgrades to the wastewater treatment plant access and shoreline. NHC previously completed the conceptual design of the upgrades and assisted the village with a successful application for a Union of British Columbia Municipalities Strategic Priorities Fund grant for detailed design and construction of the proposed upgrades. NHC is also part of the Fraser Basin Council, so they are considered to be the most qualified and knowledgeable consultant in this field. NHC has assembled a team of consultants with a strong and diverse expertise, partnering with Space to Place Design Incorporated, Thurber Engineering Limited, and Legacy Environmental Limited as the subcontractors to provide service in landscaping, architecture, geotechnical, and environmental components of the design process, respectively. Highlights from the proposal. Select staff from the project team will participate in a startup meeting to confirm the project objectives, review the intended goals, overall scope, and project design criteria. Day-to-day project management will include administrative tasks such as developing project safety protocols, budgets, schedule tracking, and ongoing correspondence and update with the village, and correspondence between various sub-consultants with the project team. An in-person site review with members from each proponent of the project team will provide the opportunity to review the site or to view the site and understand the physical settings and its current condition. NHC encourages Village Council to meet with the project team at this time to provide initial input for design development. The new dike must provide the required level of flood protection while also creating a space that meets the vision and expectation of the community and partners. The project team will undertake engagement with our Indigenous communities and the public to ensure that their is an opportunity to provide input, which will be used to read or refine the design. Detailed design of the upgrade dike is a multidisciplinary effort that requires incorporation of various technical and practical criteria while considering the dike's contribution to the public space. The design process includes civil and hydrological design conducted by NHC to ensure that the dike provides necessary flood protection and fits within the existing site constraints. Landscape architecture designed by Space to Place, creating a waterfront experience that fits with the expectations of the public, and geotechnical design by TEL to ensure that the dike sections meet geotechnical and seismic standards. Liaison with the dike of or inspector of dikes will be required to confirm appropriate design parameters such as the dike crest level and appropriate seismic design criteria and approach. The project team will engage the IOD early in the project to initiate discussion, ensure that design criteria are identified. Then following completion of the design, NHC will prepare and submit the Dike Maintenance Act application, which will require or will be required for approval to construct the dike. Several federal and provincial environmental permit approvals will be required for this project to proceed. Should council approve the following recommendations, the total management fees, including the detailed design, engagement, and regulatory environment components, is expected to cost up to $550,000. The recommendation in front of council this evening is that Harrison Hot Springs Council authorize up to $550,000, excluding GST, of the Canada Community Building Fund in British Columbia, Strategic Priorities Fund funding to complete the detailed design of the upgrade to the wastewater, the Harrison Lake Protective Dike, the wastewater treatment plant access road in the area around the wastewater treatment plant, and that the village retain the team assembled by Northwest Hydraulics Consultants that include Northwest Hydraulic Consultants, Space to Place, Design Incorporated, and Thurber Engineering to prepare the detailed design for the Harrison Lake Protective Dike, the wastewater treatment plant access road, and the area around the wastewater treatment plant.
Thank you, sir. Do I have a mover? Moved by Councillor Facio, seconded by Councillor Jackson. Discussion? Councillor Vidal.
Thank you, Mayor Wood. Just a couple of questions for you two, operations manager and our acting deputy CAO. I just wanted clarity that the NHS previously completed the conceptual design of the upgrades, and that came through a application through UBCM for a grant. So that cost has already been done, so we would not be needing to use any of the funds from the almost $6 million that we received for that. Is that correct?
So for the preliminary design, the previous funding that has been consumed for we will, for the detailed design, we'll need to use the funding from the $6 million grant.
Thank you. And do we have any idea at this time what public engagement and Indigenous community engagement would involve, or am I getting ahead of myself here?
No, not at all. We briefly discussed this when they submitted their proposal. The engagement will be put out to our Indigenous neighbors, and that path will have to take its own course. Public engagement, it was expected to probably be two opportunities, one kind of in the very early stages, and then one in the later stages showing what the ultimate design will be.
Thank you. That's helpful. And one further question is, you know, we kind of all know that, you know, this project will take considerable time. So part of it would NHC be providing a rough idea of a timeline. And kind of break down each step along the way as to timeframes. Thank you.
Yeah, it's very difficult to say. I did have a brief discussion with them regarding timelines. The funding deadline is, I believe it's September 9th of 2025. And the challenge is knowing what it's going to take, how long it's going to take for the permitting through the province and the federal government. So that could take anywhere from 18 months to 2 years. So we're kind of at a critical time right now to get everything, kind of get the ball rolling, because we don't know how long the permitting stage is going to take. However, in their proposal, NHC does have scheduling or did propose to kind of lay out what to expect. Obviously, that's a little bit fluid, depending on the permitting.
Terrific. And I certainly thank you for a little bit of clarity. Thank you, Mayor Witt.
Thank you. Councillor Facio?
Thank you, Mayor. With just one question through you to Mr. Cook. The part of the 6 million, or just under 6 million, did include the raising of the dike wall. Am I correct?
That hasn't been, the ultimate design hasn't been completed. So the idea is that the majority of the protective dike will be seeing approximately 1 meter of increase. What that's going to look like, I don't know.
But I'm just making reference to the 2025. So that would have to be all completed by then, am I correct?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Further discussion, Councillor Jackson?
Thank you, Worship. My biggest concern is delay. We've seen a pipeline from Alberta go from 8 billion to 30 billion. Costs are escalating all the time, and it's nice to have a lot of dialogue, but dialogue costs a lot of money. I think we have to take the trust of the engineers to get it and get it right, come back to council as quick as they can so we can get busy on this, so we won't have huge overruns and we can't complete the whole project as was laid out. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to address that concern. It's a real concern. However, I do want to clarify, if it wasn't clear in my report, this is just the detailed design. The ultimate construction and issuing of the construction or portion of the project will come back to council.
Thank you. So I have any further questions, Council? I have some questions, or actually some concerns on it. I think it's great. It's a great project. I'm anxious to get it moving. I agree with Councillor Jackson, but also some things have to take a bit of time. Maybe there's areas that can be sped up, other areas where it's more architecturally important, that, those areas possibly be slowed down. I mean, we have to question whether or not the $6 million is even enough to do the project. So I think we're a long ways away from getting to any part of construction. But my concern is the process. So we sole sourced this evaluation, which was to Northwest Hydraulic Consultants. And that was to help us do the preliminary review and to fill out the documents to apply for the grant funding. So again, so that was sole sourced. So this now again is a sole source contract. So we're talking at $550,000 to be sole sourced. I can't support government money or the public monies being spent sole sourced to one specific company. There would have to be some extremely specific good reason. Referring to our purchasing policy, the bidding requirements, again, under the purchasing policy, bidding is required for this project. I realize it adds more time to it, but again, this is government money. This is not our particular money. It's federal funding. And it's also, as I recall, as I signed the agreement for the $6 million, I thought I recalled seeing a section in there, I could be wrong, which says that competitive bidding was required in this process. So I would like to suggest is that we refer this back to staff to confirm, in fact, the contractual agreement that competitive bidding is a requirement and that sole sourcing is not an option. So we just had a recommendation on the table, and that recommendation has been moved in by Councillor Facio, seconded by Councillor Jackson. So I'm going to continue on with that motion. There's no further discussion on this. Are we ready to call the question? All in favor? Motion passes with the mayor opposed. Next order of business, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The next order of business is report from CAO, interim CAO regarding the council code of conduct. So before you tonight, we have an amended code of conduct bylaw. What staff did from the last time this was brought forward. So so at the April 3rd, 2023 regular council meeting, council passed the following resolution, and that was that the draft code of conduct bylaw be reviewed by legal counsel and provide any changes or amendments that may be necessary. Lidstone and Company have reviewed the initial draft code of conduct bylaw and provided comments which were provided to council at the May 15th, 2023 regular council meeting. At this meeting, council passed the following resolution: that the code of conduct bylaw number 1189, 2023 be referred back to staff to bring the report back to the next council meeting. So what council did in that time was at the May 15th meeting, the Deputy Director of Corporate Administration, did I say that right? No. Oh, sorry, the Deputy CAO
Yes.
had noted that there were some things in the bylaw that needed to be amended. So staff went through and also reading Mr. Garneau's submission. So I did take a look at that as well. So under definitions, under complaint, the word formal has been removed from between the words means a allegation. So the word formal has been removed from there. Sections 4.11, 4.12, 4.17, 4.16, 4.13, 4.14, 4.2 have had the wording corporate officer or the word deputy corporate CO or delegate has been changed to deputy CAO. So that is all consistent now. Section 4.1.9, subsection Roman numeral 2 has had the word and the Roman numeral 2 removed. So the code of conduct bylaw with the lawyer's recommendation and our corrections is included in this evening's agenda for council's consideration under bylaws. The recommendation going forward is that the council for the village of Harrison Hot Springs give the council code of conduct bylaw 1189, 2023, first three readings, and that the current village of Harrison Hot Springs code of conduct policy number 1.33 be canceled once the code of conduct bylaw number 1189, 2023 is adopted.
Thank you. Do I have a mover? Moved by Councillor Bidell, seconded by Councillor Jackson. Discussion? I have just a little bit more to discuss on this here. I mean, this is going through all this. It is quite the policy or bylaw, I should say. There's a lot of changes in it. I really appreciate the way that staff have made all of the comments, changes in different font or different color. But I mean, there's an awful lot of changes. I guess I just have two real comments on this. This sounds like this could almost create a full-time position for somebody and it could be very expensive for the inspector costs. I realized that this started off for something from a larger municipality like Squamish. We're a small little village. Do we really need something as onerous as this? I look at this and the first thing I think you're gonna almost have to do is hire a lawyer every time to figure out what we're gonna have to do. So I just, well, I know there's been a lot of work put into it here. I know it started by Counselor Bidell. I'm not sure what Counselor Bidell, if she had something specific she was looking for, something that attracted her to the District of Squamish. Does Counselor Bidell have any comment at all on that?
Thank you, Mayor Wood. It is a provincial requirement that at the beginning of every term, a council either enact or review an existing code of conduct. So that started this whole process. And through it, we came to realization that our current code of conduct, which was in a policy format, was very much incomplete. And I had quite extensive discussion with my Lower Mainland Local Government Association colleagues. They initially suggested that perhaps we could take a look at City of Abbotsford's Code of Conduct, which I did provide to council and to our CAO. I do believe then our interim CAO was wise and went to UBCM and looked for some recommendations through them. And that is where they did recommend that we take a look at Squamish's Code of Conduct. So draft was presented, and it did become quite clear that we needed to amend and adapt it to Harrison being a smaller community. So I fully recognize and appreciate your comments on that. So that's the history with it. It's gone back and forth through drafts, I think 2 or 3 times. I think that this is an excellent draft bylaw. It doesn't mean that it cannot be amended from time to time as a bylaw. It's very extensive. I'm pleased with it. I want to thank our staff sincerely for working with council, and I will be voting in support of the recommendation. Thank you, Mayor Wood.
Thank you, Counselor Bidell, for that explanation. I appreciate that. Any further discussion on this? Ready to call? Oh, Counselor Jackson?
Thank you, Worship. I too find it too long. One of the things that I know we did in business was to keep things simple as we possibly can. And this to me is just too much. But this is the one question here, maybe somebody can answer it for me. The use of influence. It says, a member must not attempt to influence the decision of the council, a committee or municipal officer or staff if the member has a pecuniary or non-pecuniary conflict of interest in relation to the decision. Well, one of the things that we do on council is debate. And naturally, if I believe strongly in something, what's on the table, I'm going to try to influence council to come my way. And that's what debate is all about. Now, the way I read this, if it just said pecuniary, that would be one. But it says non-pecuniary, and that's the other. So that to me sticks out as something that I would not want in there. Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion on it? So we're ready to, so we've got, it was moved by Counselor Bidell, seconded by Counselor Jackson, no further discussion. We can call the question. All in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Next order of business, please.
Thank you, Mayor Wood. The next order is new business. And the first item on the agenda is request from Councillor Facio regarding the community garden.
Councillor Facio, please.
Thank you, Mayor Wood. This is a request that came through an email to me from Audrey Johnston, who basically organizes and runs a community garden. This community garden was set up in 2008 through a grant that we received. It's been a very important part of the community, and I think she's making a request here for the rotting boxes and to be replaced. They would do the labor work. They do give a small amount of money every year to the village from what they collect, between $400 or $500. I would like this to be refer this back to our staff, probably it'll be the operations manager, I assume, to speak with Ms. Johnson and discuss exactly what she's asking for. My original request when we got to a committee of the whole was going to be that maybe with more people who are interested in community garden, that the actual boxes should be a smaller size and raised like they do in a lot of communities, so people are not bending down all the time to do the weeding or pulling out the tomatoes or whatever else they're pulling out. That they would be more, would attract a few more people if they were smaller and raised. So I'll leave that in the hands of the operations manager, but just the request is that refer this back to the staff to speak with Audrey Johnson regarding the rotting boxes and come to a final decision on the costing, and then bring a report back to council with what they've decided and how we're going to find the costing, whether it's in this year's budget or whether it will be referred to next year's budget. Thank you.
Thank you. So that's referred to the staff. So do I have that's moved, seconded by Councillor Jackson, moved by Councillor Facio, if I didn't say that. Discussion on it, further discussion? I would just like to talk about the community garden. I mean, I've heard a lot of people say that they'd like to be part of the community garden. I have no idea how many people we have waiting for it. I think Councillor Facio made some good points, possibly reducing the size to it, possibly expanding it onto the boulevard, possibly another program of whatever, possibly using some other land somewhere else. Just with the gardens, I noticed that a lot of the raised gardens now, they're being raised quite high. And they're getting rid of the chemical pressure treated wood idea, and they're going to a galvanized corrugated type thing. So the life cycle of these things is tremendous. So I think that if we're going to be looking at something like this, I think that, I think they've done 4 boxes out of, it sounds like another 20 more or something. So it would be nice to be holistic in whatever we do on this. The only other comment I wanted to make on this one here too, though, is that, so the $400 in it, and I'm going to assume it's comes from the grants and aid. I know that the village here has put advertisement out for applications for it, and I'm sure that report is coming to back to councils one day in the future. And I just, when a person puts in a request like this, I just want to make sure it doesn't circumvent the grants and aid program. So that, to me, that is important. I just wanted to make that verbal comment. Any further discussion on this? Ready to call the question. So this is to refer back to staff to speak with Audrey on the gardens here. So I'll call the question. Ready for the question? All in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Next item, Councillor Facio.
Thank you, Mayor Wood. And the last item is the 2023 age-friendly grants, which is open on June 1st. Columbia communities can apply for funding aimed at helping seniors lead independent, active lives. And there's up to $25,000. Raised friendly assessments and action plans. So I'm asking that our staff apply for this. It's the deadline, closing date is July the 28th of this year. And it will give us an opportunity to look how to make some decisions and opportunities how to help the age friendly in the community. So my request is to ask our staff to apply for this grant. So it has to be by July the 28th. I'll make that motion if I may.
Okay, so moved by Counselor Facio, seconded by Counselor. Sorry, but Counselor Bidell. Any further discussion on this? Counselor Bidell.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you to Councillor Facio, is there a amount of that grant? Or is it based on a population?
Local and indigenous governments and communities can submit applications for 23 grants starting June 1st and closing July the 28th. These governments may apply for a stream one grant for as much as 25,000.
Great, thank you.
Further discussion? No. Counselor Facio, did you still have your motion?
sorry.
No. Ready to call the question then? This is again to refer to staff to apply for the grant for July the 28th. Again, ready to call the question. All in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Next order of business, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The next is questions from the public pertaining to agenda items only.
Any members from the public?
Good evening, Teresa Almala, 641 Skinner Place.
Good evening.
In regards to the pool meeting, thank you very much that consideration will be given to attending this June. I think it's a good courtesy to Kent Agassiz District to continue on their schedule and to continue fundraising for these for this pool initiative. Secondly, in regards to the dike rebuild in Harrison Hot Springs, $550,000 is a lot of money. I do agree it should be considered in a bigger scope of the $6 million and not having to repeat drafting plans and things like that. So in regards to planning or rebuilding for the dike or initial consultation fees, etc., I would like the mayor and council to consider discussions with Abbotsford and Sumas. And this is because in November of 2021, there was a catastrophic flood that affected their dike system. So if anyone would have some information that we could borrow or utilize to save funds, I'm sure Abbotsford would be happy to provide that information to prevent catastrophic flooding from happening elsewhere. I know the former mayor, Henry Braun, did a fabulous job saving that community from absolute total destruction. And I would have to say it bodes well for his character as well as his integrity and perseverance to, when you see a grown man cry like that over what happened, and for him to be able to keep it together and get that community safe and for their lives lost, I think it would do an injustice to the people of Harrison and surrounding communities to not consult Abbotsford. So that is my concern in regards to the planning for the dike. And lastly, in regards to the community gardens, We are paying taxpayer dollars for green waste collection every week. I don't think it's rocket science to come up with a compost system that could be utilized for the village of Harrison Hot Springs Community Gardens. And I'm sure there's ample gardeners with historical experience about gardening that could set up a simple compost system to save our taxpayers dollars. And essentially, we wouldn't even need to have GFL pick up our compost waste in that regard, because we could have a Harrison Hot Springs employee picking it up and saving us money. So that's something else that I'd like to consider. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your ideas. I think we all hear them and it's nice to hear them. Again, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. John Allen, 398 Hot Springs Road. Just a question, on page 17, you have a letter of resignation from Sonia Ryers. And I've read the letter through 3 or 4 times, and Sonia Ryers says that she regrets that she'd be submitting her resignation as chair of the APC. And then on the second paragraph says that she is to step down from my position. Her 4th paragraph starts out as chair of the APC, and her 6th paragraph talks about in this role and the support they provided during my tenure. So all of those references are to her position as chair of the APC. But nowhere in the letter does she say that she's resigning as a member of the Advisory Planning Commission. One of the members is the chair. She has resigned as chair. You, I think, have accepted this letter of resignation. So has she resigned only as the chair? Does she remain as a member of the APC? Because the letter doesn't resign her membership, only her chair position. And as a supplementary question, you mentioned that only 2 members remain, and I think those are 2 Harrison residents. The other member who may have resigned, but you haven't announced and may have a reason for not doing so, is Donna Cooney, a resident of Agassiz, as is Sonia Ryers. So have the 2 Agassiz members resigned, or has only one of them resigned? Has Donna Cooney resigned or not resigned? And where do we go from here? I'm asking for clarification, Mr. Mayor.
To answer the question, they have both offered their resignations.
Sorry,
They have both offered their resignations.
as members of the APC.
Correct.
Well, this letter doesn't say that. This letter says she's resigning as chair, but not her membership. I think that needs examination. So
Thank you.
secondly, Mr. Mayor, I think you should look into that because it's important that we have clarity. And I think it's important that we have Harrison residents on the Advisory Planning Commission. And I don't actually agree with your suggestion that it be scrapped. It was a very good and useful body, and it has existed, unlike what Mr. Facio says from 93. It existed in 1978 because I was on it in 1978. So it's been around a long time. And I think it has in the past provided great service to the community. And I think it can do so in the future if it's properly managed and is composed of Harrison residents only and not people from outside the community. On the issue of the fire risk and John Cole's report about the Sasquatch Park emergency exit route, I originally started that suggestion many years ago when we were given a scenario about a train derailment at Agassiz, a cloud of gas. What are you going to do? We said, we run to the north. Where do we go? Well, things have changed in the last 20 years since I first said we go out through Sasquatch Park. And one of the things that has changed is the rail traffic. We no longer have loaded cars coming through Agassiz. We have empty cars going eastward through Agassiz. No bitumen, no oil, no chemicals, no coal. They're all empties going back. So we have a much lower risk of that scenario happening. The second thing is in a conversation with a resident of Thunderbird Estates in this past week. His concern was that if our east sector, the Great Harrison Forest Park area, as I call it, lying alongside McCombs, if that ignites this week when it's dry and hot and the winds are blowing, that fire will go right along Bear Mountain as it did in 1970, and I was an eyewitness for that. And it'll burn northwards up Rockwell Drive through Thunderbird and on up to Greenpoint. And that will close the road, the exit route, with falling trees and embers and make it impassable in a fire situation. One more reason that that is not really a viable exit route in all conditions. So I'd like you to consider that as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Any further? I think
Two
that
brief
gen- I think-
comments.
I think
I'm
that
sorry.
gentleman, I think that gentleman was ahead of you. His husband and wife.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm Alan Garno from 641 Schooner Place. If I may be indulged to make a couple of comments, particularly the item that there's been a little bit of discussion on just now, but that was the letter by Ross Buchanan with regard to the wildfire interface. And I wasn't going to say much, but then I've been watching the news with what's going on down in Halifax. We've got our own share of fires, but it's in Halifax that comes the closest to what we're dealing with right here. And it's a disaster. I know that there've been 2 reports received, and I have no idea what's been done with them and why we haven't been able to discuss them. But anyway, this is a priority item, I think, because, and it's not going to be cheap. There's going to have to be money coming from senior governments, I know, to assist. But if we don't do some forest management along the east sector, particularly, and to some degree along the other side, we're in real deep trouble, because McCombs is one of the access routes, but McCombs would be the first thing that would be shut down in the event of an interface fire. The clove, the cluster of trees around the fire hall would make an excellent demonstration of what good forest management means in an interface situation. Right now, it just looks as bad as anything else. It's just as likely to be an interface fire from the clove, from the right within the village, next to the fire hall, ironically. And it might not take too much to actually get somebody in there to remove the deadfall on the bottom and get the height of those branches so it's not so easily ignited in the first place and spread in the second. Anyway, it's just something that needs to be dealt with, and it's very serious. And I just would like to commend Ross Buchanan for the things. And if you haven't seen the copy of the news item that he posted on the community website, it's a good one to look at, because it tells you exactly what we're going to be dealing with. And there we are. My main point in coming before here is to deal with the Council Code of
Can I just,
Conduct.
can I just ask you, I just wouldn't mind talking about the fire.
I'm
first-
sorry,
No, just before you move to the second one.
would you like?
I just want to respond to your comments regarding the fire.
Well, if I can come back to the mic after I've heard you,
Sure.
I could lip read you right now, and that's why I know what you said, but anyway.
Thank you. So there was a community wildfire protection plan that was started in, I believe it was 2017. And it took 2 years for that to be completed, and it came to council in 2019. And my understanding is that there's actually nothing that has actually been done in that report to date. I would like to say that we have a committee of the whole meeting a week today. I believe it's a week today. And this is one of the items which is on the agenda. There are 3 main items on the agenda for that meeting, and I think all council here will be taking that very, very seriously. And again, I thank you for bringing it. I thank anyone that's made comment on the fire, even the fire zones. There's a huge component to it. I hope that we can start moving somewhere. Part of the conversation in the next committee of the whole meeting is also going to be on the evacuation route. I hope that we can again start to put some of this to bed or make some resolutions on it. The emergency coordinator that we have will be in attendance. He is, I believe he's only maybe 6 months into the position. So, you know, you've got new people into it again. So you got new blood. He's also the deputy fire chief for Agassiz. So he's a busy individual, but we share him with the District of Kent. So I look forward to the conversations in our committee of the whole meeting. Unfortunately, in the committee of the whole meetings, we don't allow public question period. But the public is able to attend and hear it. I believe the meeting will be held in this hall here, so there should be plenty of seating. So again, with people concerned with the anything to do with fires, I would inspire you to attend that meeting. Thank you. If you want to just come back up and go to your next question.
Yes, thank you. And that's encouraging to hear. And it's a worthwhile venture. The more recent report contains some very interesting information, because just because there's a nice green tree doesn't mean it isn't a dangerous tree. And there are certain trees that are allowed within a good forest management. There are certain trees that should be done away with. They're like an infestation almost. So there's good information in those reports. So if they're coming up and something will happen, I'm really glad to hear about that. The second one has to do more with process, and I don't want to prolong this rather, but the matter of the code of conduct. I understand the source, and I think the acting Chief Administration Officer was right to try to find out where's a good example of a code of conduct that we could use. And she found one and submitted it. The council had the lawyer for the council or for the village vet it, and a number of changes were made. And at the time that was introduced, from this microphone, I said, I've tried to go through it, and I used the word daunting to describe what you faced. I said I would find a couple of things, and as I looked through all of the changes, I thought, that wasn't a lawyer who said that. There was other changes made as well. Now, I tried to find out, okay, how do I know what the lawyer recommended? And if not, who else recommended? There are lots of changes. Some of the changes I think were very critical, and I don't think they found their way to the final copy. It bothers me. Some of them seem to be political. There's no place for that. We're trying to run without having to do that. We want a council that gets together and does things. There were other things that I mean, and there's one, I mean, there was one place where there was a word called accurate. And two words were added, correct, accurate, and there was another word. They're all synonyms. They're the same word to me, say the same thing 3 times. There was no need for that. I don't know where that came from. There was mention of, in this document, as the mayor is the chief executive officer, which is true. But it was deleted. The lawyer deleted? If not, who did? And did that get changed? I think there was an explanation that had to do, well, it says so in the community charter that so why duplicate it? Well, listen, we duplicate a lot of stuff in the community charter in our bylaws, particularly the rules of procedure. So see, my interest in this goes back to when I first found there should be a code of conduct, and I couldn't find it because it was in a policy that has been kept secret. And that was wrong, and I'm so glad that that was corrected by bringing it public. But you know, in the provincial website, whether it's under the Local Government Act, I'm not sure, but there's a sample code of conduct to use to get going. That sample with all the comments is only 6 pages long. The sample, and that includes a lot of instructions. This document was reduced to 18 pages, if I'm not mistaken. 18 pages. So I really hope that, I mean, this is, it's just convoluted. It just seems to be too ridiculous. I mean, when you say that you shouldn't be breaking any law, and I said, well, what about a speeding ticket? That's breaking a law. I don't know if that got removed. There's still some problems with this document, and I might have missed it, but I understand you gave it 3 readings tonight.
Correct.
So the next thing is adoption. And as I said, I still think there are things in there that need not be, but I'm just hoping that before the next round, you have to have one within 6 months of a new election, which means it's really 4 years before you're forced to sort of make it, but you should have an annual review, that you look at this and maybe look to streamlining it. It needs it. Otherwise, it's so convoluted that I think you made a comment about needing a full-time person just to manage this thing. Yeah, I think that might happen, and I'm sorry if that does, but, and I'm not trying to be critical of staff and the role that they played in doing this, because it was a difficult one, and I think they had every intention of doing a really good job in it. In the process, we've ended up with a monster. Thank you.
Thank you.
Short and sweet. In regards to the bike rebate program for e-bikes, just to inform people that they are taking people on a wait list at this point. Thank you.
What does that actually mean?
For the
Bikes?
funds right now have been, it's my understanding that if you apply now, you will be put on a wait list because they've had such a positive response, an overwhelming response within the first 24 hours that they ran the program, that the money is temporarily allocated for people. So you have to wait.
It's good and bad. Thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
Just let me just. Yeah, I'm just 1 second. Is there anybody on Zoom?
Anyone on Zoom, if you have a question, please use the raise your hand button.
There's one more person after me that wishes to speak.
Is there one person? No questions? Thank you. I'll just take just these two. Go ahead. No, go ahead. Thank you.
Mark Ferrero, 345 Chestnut Avenue. Good evening, councilors.
Good evening.
My God, code of conduct. Whew. Considering the goings on of the last 3 months, that's a real can of worms, isn't it? Anyways, I am hoping that everyone, and I mean everyone, will adhere to this new code of conduct. Considering that staff has been mistreated, counselors were made to appear like liars, thieves, and cheats, and many other things that concern me a little bit. Now, I noticed also that we're -1 counselor this evening. I'm kind of wondering why. Staff, senior staff does not just leave a major corporate office for no reason. I understand that you're all about transparency, sir. Perhaps you could enlighten us all. Thank you. You have a good evening, folks.
Thank you. Just one last question. Just one more, Counselor.
I have three quick points to bring out. The first one with regards to disaster avoidance. I would like council to consider the disaster potential fire threat in our immediate village on Lillooet Avenue next to 410 Esplanade, which also centers on Lillooet. There's an abandoned property which I brought to the attention of the fire department and to council several years ago. I live next to that building. It is used on a off and on basis by young people going in and out. It's also used by vagrants. I personally have called the RCMP several times. I've lived, or I should say, spent weeks in the Shuswap when the Salmon Arm fire was burning and huge pieces of ash were falling on my sister's deck. And for that reason, I felt it was my social responsibility to bring forward my concerns about that abandoned property. And I'm very concerned that something hasn't been done to that because it is so dry. The grass is up to here. And if that catches on fire in the present day conditions of dryness everywhere, this village, I'm sorry, but I truly believe it's a massive threat. So that being said, I'll move on to the garden, which Audrey Johnston and Jean Hicks both are the main thrust behind that garden. And I'd like to say that I would really ask that council consider improving the height of the garden. I think that's definitely would help a lot of seniors like myself who are gardening there. Also, if there's any possibility to enlarging the garden space, I don't really think that the size of the gardens, I myself have just started gardening since I no longer had a partner available who did all the gardening, and the garden that we have is equivalent to one of these little tables here, or maybe smaller. So to consider the effort you would have to put into your garden for just, it would, I don't know, it wouldn't, I don't recommend downsizing gardens. The next question I had was with regards to age-friendly money. I'm asking council to consider reinstating, if it hasn't already been done so, and maybe it has and I missed it, the age-friendly committee. Because I think there is a place in this village for an age-friendly committee, and that there are a lot of people who would be quite willing to serve on that committee and to help in decisions moving forward. Thank you very much.
The just for your information, the age-friendly committee was established. That was done just after it was the first council meeting after inauguration. So there's that committee. It's just a matter now of forming the people and putting it all together. As the staff as we start to get our staff back together again, you'll see that come back up in play. Thank you. So move for adjournment. Councillor Facio, second by Councillor Jackson. Call the question. All in favor? Passes unanimously. We're adjourned. Thank you, everybody, for coming tonight.